Just hit a button, Morty. Give me a beat.
Oh man, okay, alright,
What up, Berry Bears? This is your favorite coach that does the most, Coach Gibbons. What? And today we're going to order real numbers. Before we get started, you should pause the video and go get the supplies you're going to need for today's lesson. That includes some paper, a pencil, and a calculator. So pause the video now and go grab your materials. Do you remember this phrase, never walk in the rain? If you do remember the phrase, do you remember what it represented? Well, if you said classifying real numbers, you would have gotten it correct. Never walk in the rain was an acronym that we use to describe the relationship between different types of number sets. Well, these number sets are considered to be a part of the real number system. Now, in the 7th grade, this is about as much as you need to know in order to be successful. But in 8th grade, there's another category that you learn. So I'm going to give you a sneak preview of it today. That category is called irrational numbers. This category is off to the side by itself because it contains numbers that have unique characteristics. Irrational numbers are unique because they're usually represented as non-terminating, non-repeating decimals. So, for example, the number 0.4564024954001, etc., etc., etc. This number is a decimal. It is in decimal form. But notice that there are no patterns. It doesn't repeat like 0.33333333 or 0.18181818. All of the numbers seem to be random. And if we were to continue on this decimal, then it would just keep going and going and going. So because it doesn't terminate and because none of the numbers repeat, it's considered irrational. There's another famous number that we've used a lot this year that's also considered an irrational number, and that number is pi. Numerically, pi is 3.14159265358979 la 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 la. Notice, none of the digits repeat, and if we were to continue writing the number, it would go on and on forever. It does not terminate, and it does not repeat. Irrational numbers are not always represented in decimal form. Sometimes they can be represented like this: the square root of 2, or in this example, the square root of 3, which if we were to find the square root of 3, it would be 1.73205080756887729359. Okay, so hopefully you understand. Irrational numbers are non-terminating, non-repeating decimals that could be represented in a variety of ways. Basically, it's a real number that cannot be written as a simple fraction, like 3/4 is equal to 0.75. Irrational means not rational. You'll learn more about this in the 8th grade, but now that you've had the sneak peek, let's keep moving. Today's lesson is about order. All numbers need order. And the easiest way to order numbers is to use a number line. Every number in the real number system has a place on this number line. Whether it's a whole number, a natural number, an integer, or an irrational number, there's a place for every number on this number line. So that's what we're going to use to order these real numbers. Here is a set of numbers: -1 4/5, 0.3, -2 13ths, 2 7/8, and the square root of 4. It would be hard to put these numbers in correct order on the number line in this format. So today we're going to focus on how we can change these numbers and order these numbers to put them in the right place. The first step you want to do is to create a T-chart and drop those numbers on the left side. The whole point is to turn these numbers into decimal form that will make it much easier for us to order it. And this is where your calculator comes into play. So let's take the first number, -1 4/5. What you want to do is to convert this mixed number into a decimal. The whole number stays the same, so it's going to be -1 point something. To figure out the something, you take your calculator and divide 4 divided by 5. And you should get 0.8. in order to convert negative 1 4/5 to a decimal, it would end up being 1.800. We'll talk more about the zeros later. Just hang in there with me. 0.3 is already in decimal form, so we just write it 0.300. Negative 2/13. Because it's a fraction, we just type it directly into our calculator, 2 divided by 13. Because it's negative on the chart, the decimal is going to be negative as well. Should have gotten 0.154. Because the fraction is negative, the decimal is negative. All right, the next number, 2 7/8. Again, because there's a whole number, because there's a whole number in the fraction, there'll be a whole number in the decimal. So we'll just write 2, and then we will divide 7/8, so 7 divided by 8, and you should get 8.75. So when we write it in our T-chart, it will be 2.875. And then finally, the square root of 4. Some of you already know this based on the other videos from earlier this week. Some of you may have already figured this one out because you've seen the square and square root video. But for those of you who did not watch it, here's how you convert the square root of 4 into a decimal form. You type the number 4 and then push the square root button, and then you get 2. But for the purposes of our T-chart, we're going to add the 3 decimal places. So if you haven't noticed by now, when you're writing out your numbers in decimal form on your T-chart, always use 3 decimal places. Always use 3 decimal places. Now that we've converted our numbers into decimal format, it should be easier for us to order them correctly on the number line. What is the biggest number on this list? 2.875. So that means 2 7/8 should go where? If you said between 2 and 3, you are correct. All right, what's the next biggest number? 2.000. The square root of 4 would go right on top of 2. What's the next biggest number on this list? Hopefully you said 0.3. And if you did, that would be correct. And that would fall between 0 and 1. So what number's bigger? Negative 1.800 or negative 0.154? Negative 0.154 is bigger, and it goes between the 0 and negative 1. And then finally, we can place 1 4/5 between negative 1 and negative 2. Now notice that I use the original numbers and not their decimal conversions. When you order real numbers, you will always need to order them in their original format. All right, so now that we've placed the numbers in their right positions on the number line, we can order them now from least to greatest. The good news is they're already ordered from least to greatest. Here are your numbers listed in order from least to greatest. The steps to order real numbers. First, you make a T-chart with the original numbers. Secondly, you're going to convert all the numbers to decimal form and use 3 decimal places. And then we put them in order and cross out the numbers that we've used. Here's another set of real numbers. We have 0, the square root of 2, the square root of 5, and 1/9. First step, create a T-chart and drop your numbers on the left side. When we're converting the numbers to decimal form, use 3 decimal places. The first one should be easy. How do you write 0 as a decimal? 0.000. How do you write the square root of 2 in decimal form? Take out your calculator, type in 2 in the square root. You should get 1.414. Remember, we stop after 3 decimal places. What is the square root of 5 in decimal form? Well, you type 5 and then hit the square root button, and you should get 2.236. And then finally, what is 1/9 as a decimal? Top in, bottom out, 1 divided by 9 in your calculator, and you should get 0.111. Only using 3 decimal places. So now that the numbers have been converted into decimal form, why don't you try to put them in order from least to greatest? Remember to use the original form of the number. So your list should include 0, square root of 2, square root of 5, and 1/9. The answer is here. 0, 1/9, square root of 2, and the square root of 5. Here is another set of numbers. You're going to drop your numbers directly in as they're written on the left side. And then you need to convert to a decimal. And remember, use 3 decimal places. 2 written as a decimal is 2.000. Square root of 10 is the same as 3.162. Negative 3/4 is represented as negative 0.750. And finally, 4/5 as a decimal is 0.800. Now that you have confirmed your decimals, why don't you put them in order from greatest to least? Remember to use the original form of the numbers: 2, square root of 10, negative 3/4, and 4/5. Here's the order from greatest to least. Hopefully you have learned something new today. All right, ladies and gents, that's all I have for you today. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to email your teacher. Leave a comment in Google Classroom. Feel free to Google it, YouTube, ordering real numbers. Until next time, I'll holler at you. Bye.